Hey there, this is Morgan with the American SPCC. I'm here with Tracy Kawa. She is a trainer and success coach, author, speaker, and podcaster, and community advocate, and of course, a member of our Trusted Parenting Network. Tracy, welcome. It's so good to have you.
Thanks, Morgan. I'm excited to be here, back
Yeah,
again at ASPCC.
that's right. And with that very impressive resume, single mom on top of that. And so we're talking about finding balance and purpose. So you are the perfect person to kind of walk through.
Yeah.
You have 7 steps to career satisfaction and personal and professional balance. So yeah, I'm excited to dive in. I think you have
Yeah.
a lot to experience to speak from.
Yeah, seriously. And just with one caveat to that, which is that currently I'm not a single mom, but I have spent much of my parenthood as a single mom. And
Yeah,
even during the time when I wasn't, like there are a lot of people out there that are not single parents, but they function as single parents. They
yeah.
have spouses that work 24/7, or, sometimes there's a spouse that's unable to contribute in certain ways. So I think it's no longer like, are you a single parent or not? Like, I know so many married people who operate as single parents.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it is definitely that reality. And so when we're talking about parents finding balance before getting into, the steps to achieve that, what does that even mean? Like what type of balance, like what is everything that needs to balance?
Yeah, everything that needs to balance. Wow. So let's roll this back and pan out, right? And take a look at the big picture, which is you have your parenthood, your family life, your home, keeping your home in order and neat and tidy. You have your work and staying on top of your work. There's just a lot of moving parts that need to be coordinated. And I think it's no longer a matter of like, oh, like if I spend time here, I've got to spend time here. It doesn't really work that way. It's more like an integration where everything is coming together at the same time, right? Like,
Yeah.
even for me right now, I have my dogs are barking in the background, right? And my son needed something 5 seconds before I got on the show. What are you going to do? You have to make everything happen. So it's, how do you integrate that and not go crazy in the
Mhm.
interim while making it all happen?
Yeah. And that's something I think about so much. I just have one child. She's almost 2.
Aw.
And I'm like, so is everyone just pretending like they're okay?
Oh
It's so
yeah. Oh
it's so hard, and you think, people do this all the time every day. Most people end up having children in their lives and also career, just statistically, most people are having to deal with all of this. Many also in poverty, and
right.
I would love to hear more about, what makes it so difficult and like how are parents functioning?
I think you're really asking a great question that we all need to hit the pause button and contemplate. And that question is, are we parenting perfectly? Right? No, we're not, because there would never be a therapist and there would never be a coach if we were all parenting
Mhm.
perfectly. And that's just the truth, right? I think a lot of people, post things on social media that look like the perfect family, right? Like mother, father, son, daughter. But it's not like that
Yeah.
anymore. You have so many, you have so many mixed families and families that are in need, and I think that if we start comparing ourselves, like it's great to compare up so that we have aspirations, but when we compare up, is up really up? Like, is
Mhm.
what we're looking at on social media really a perfect family? Or maybe they're just posting that perfect picture, but behind the scenes, they're going through their own struggles. And I don't think there's any person alive or any family that exists that doesn't have its own struggles,
Mhm.
right? It's not, everything isn't perfect. What's perfect is life. Life is perfect. and we have to choose what we have and then make it better from there, right? So if
Yeah.
we have good, we get to make it great. And if we have great, we get to make it superb. And if we have kind of crappy, we get to make it better.
Mhm. That's good. And it's definitely very overwhelming to think about, about balancing all the things and finding purpose on top of that. And so I guess, like, where do you usually recommend parents starting if they're just feeling like they're drowning? They would love to find more joy and find time to do things that are like more fun with their kids, or have
Yeah.
more, work a little harder and move up at work, whatever it is, if they just feel like any of that seems like beyond anything they have time for. um,
Right.
where do you usually recommend starting? Where's that low hanging fruit?
To me, the lowest hanging fruit would be to create a circle and then cut it into pie shapes, right?
Hmm.
Like pizza pie, and then writing work life in one of those triangles, and parenting in another triangle, and self-care in another triangle, and spirituality in another triangle, and health in another triangle, right? Like just lay down all of the components of your life and write down what it is that is working for you right now in that component and what isn't working in that component. Right? Maybe you have maybe your spiritual balance is amazing. Maybe, you're going to church or temple and you're praying every day, or, whatever kind of spirituality you believe in, and you're practicing that. Maybe you're meditating every day, but maybe there are certain aspects of work that are out of balance that need to or get to be worked on, right? Like I think we forget that life is a get to, not a have to. I think we all feel in a certain way that like we should be in a certain place, or this should be happening, or, our life should be perfect, our kids should be perfect, but there's no such thing. I think, all of life is a happening now type of thing.
Hmm.
So choosing what we have, but really, like you said, like taking inventory. Where is it that is working for us? Where is it that is not working for us? And then determining what needs to happen, right? How do we need to get from where we are to what we're really envisioning for our lives?
Hmm. That's good. Is there any like themes you usually see in parents, or is it just kind of depend on the person?
I'm thinking about that. I don't know that there are themes.
Hmm.
I think time,
Yeah.
right? Time would be the biggest complaint that parents don't have enough of.
Hmm.
Right, but really it's about using your time wisely. Like one of our points that we talk about, you were saying the 7 steps, the
Hmm.
7 points. One of the points that we talk about is quality time. Like we may not have all the time in the world, but it depends on the quality of that time that we're spending with our kids. Like if we're spending, I know that I'm going to just use me for an example, right? Because I'm not perfect. I'd love to think I am, but I'm not. And my younger son is like, you're always telling me like clean up your room, and I am, because his room is always a mess and I'm always on top of him. However, at a certain point I realized, my goodness, this is all I'm talking to him about.
Hmm.
So I made sure, I said, hey, let's go out to the park. Let's go, let's sit down and watch a movie together. During which time I didn't mention at all about his messy room. I just spoke to him about life, or, we watched a movie together. Maybe we spoke a little bit about the movie, but I
Yeah.
think it's the quality of the time, right? Because time is a theme, and it's not having enough time, but it's what we do with our time.
Hmm.
We use our time wisely. It's when we have the highest use of our time and talents, right? Using
Hmm.
them really wisely. That to me, there's nothing better than that. I think
Yeah.
that's something that all parents can like take inventory and say, what am I doing with my time? Like, oh my God, I just was on social media for 2 hours and the time went by and I didn't even realize it. But guess what? Like that's 2 hours, like, or 1 hour that you could be spending with your kids, or,
Hmm.
creating good memories for yourself, not just looking at everybody else's memories, right? On
Yeah.
social media.
So you mentioned the 7 steps, and obviously quality time actually takes up a few of them, and the different ways that you can really make the most of it. So, let's kind of dive in. So you designed these 7 steps to personal and professional balance and purpose. So could you give us like a little overview of kind of the origin of it, and then also and how they came to be?
Yeah, the 7 steps are basically some areas in our life that we get to look at and evaluate because there are a lot of times where we wish, again, that we had more time, or we wish we had more satisfaction in certain
Mhm.
areas of our life, or we wish we had more quote unquote balance. So I created these different steps to help just bridge from where we are to where we want to be, or where we get to be,
Yeah.
and to create more satisfaction and fulfillment in our lives. Because on the one hand, we could look at it like, oh my God, I'm failing in every area of my life. I'm not holding it together. And on the other hand, we can actually look at it like, I'm taking a step every day in
Mhm.
each of these different areas, and
Yeah.
I'm trying my best. And
Yeah,
that's really important.
it's almost like the pie that you described earlier, and then you gave just actionable ways to kind of take that step forward in each. So,
Exactly.
yeah, so do you wanna go through, the steps with us? What
Sure.
if parents are taking notes, what are we writing down?
Yeah, well, if parents are taking notes, then definitely step number one would be to reverse navigate. So just remember that a lot of this conversation comes from, me 8 years as a career coach, author of 2 books on careers, right? Like one is Finding the 7 Steps of Reinvention, Finding Your Passion and Purpose, and the other is Faith, Hope, and Options, a mid-career transitioner's Bible. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of my work comes from having worked with professionals who are in their mid careers, just, people in the workforce, people, wherever they're working. There's no particular career, just
Mhm,
literally across the board. So the first step towards like that ultimate fulfillment in life, right? Or towards creating that fulfillment for yourself is to just imagine and reverse navigate. And what that means is imagine where you want to be. Have that end goal in mind. What is that ideal job that you want to one day not resign from, but retire from, right? Like, what is that last job that you want to have in your life before, before you say goodbye to your career, before you say, okay, I put in all my years? What does that look like? And this can even work with parenting. Like, what do you want to see for your children when they're older? And what are the steps that we need to take now towards grooming them in that direction, to be positive, productive, healthy, functioning members of society that are well adjusted. So just reverse navigate. Imagine what it is that you want to see, whether it's your career or your personal life, or with your kids, and just take a look at what that looks like between where you are now and where you want to be, and start reverse navigating the
mhm.
steps to build towards that direction, towards that end.
And I would imagine that hiring a personal career coach is a lot of that is helping define that, because I think, like I feel like it depends on the day.
Right.
So, where you wanna end up.
Yeah.
So that's something that
Yeah, and the thing is, Morgan, like not everyone can afford career coach, but there's so many great articles online. There are so
mhm,
many assessments that you can take. There are so many steps. There's so many things that you can do. I try to put out uh, wonderful, productive information. Anybody who wants can follow me on Facebook, or I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. So there are things that you can do that
yeah,
don't necessarily require money that still will give you career satisfaction, like some of these other steps that we're going to talk about. Like step
yeah,
number 2 is create quality time with yourself.
mhm,
Just having like a few moments to yourself and giving yourself a mental check-in. Years ago, I was interviewing actually for American SPCC. I was interviewing David Long, and he said to me, I do a mental check in with myself every day after work and before I interact with my kids. And I thought that was brilliant
Mhm.
because many of us don't take that mental time to transition from our workday into our personal lives, right?
Yeah.
Into our lives with our kids. Like if we're doing that 9 to 5, if we're going out somewhere working or working in our home office and then saying, okay, I'm about to interact with my kids. Let me just clear off my mental plate right now. And I
Yeah.
thought that was brilliant. So that was number two is, that quality time, give yourself whatever, mental check-in, take care of yourself. Just take a few minutes each day, even if it's just to clear your mind, meditate, watch your favorite show, just have a few minutes just for yourself that even the kids know, hey, give mom a few minutes of time and then we're going to do, XYZ, then we're going to read a book, or then, I'm going to put you to bed, or then you can watch your show or whatever it is. Just give mom a few minutes, or give dad a few minutes of his time, right?
Yeah. It's so important, because, our brains are always running, 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 trying to make sure everything's happening. And so just taking some of that mental real estate to say,
Yeah.
how am I doing? What do I need?
Mhm.
And integrating into that, into all the things that you're moving around is definitely valuable. Okay,
Yeah.
so quality time with yourself. What are the other types of quality time that people should be thinking about?
Well, definitely quality time with the kids, as we mentioned before. It's
Yeah.
not about the quantity of time. And, this isn't stuff that I've made up. This is stuff that we've all heard. It's not about the quantity of time, it's about the quality of time.
Mhm.
Then the next is really your quality downtime. Like what you do with your personal time really does matter,
Mhm.
right? Because we can spend like 2 hours a day on social media and at the end of the month, really have nothing to show for it other than, some comparisons and keeping in touch with people, which, yes, is important,
Mhm.
but maybe doesn't require 2 hours a day. For instance, you can literally take half an hour a day to learn something online and have a brand new certification in a field that you're interested in by the end of the month or the end of 2 months. And I think people don't really realize right now how easily accessible that education or that continuing education is.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's just another way to feel like you're taking that step. And even if you missed a few days, knowing that it's still in the regular rotation and you're moving forward,
Exactly.
um, every day isn't gonna, you're not gonna move forward in every part of the pie every day. But knowing that you can like look back over a month, it's kind of like, I know this is so silly. Yeah, my daughter's weight gain has always been like an issue because she's so small. And so the pediatrician said to look at her eating over the course of a couple days. You
Right.
know, sometimes she's gonna be hungry, sometimes she's not, and that's such a silly comparison for this, but it just helps you realize it is really so holistic. It's over a
Yeah.
bigger
No,
period
it's
of time, and like we're just moving towards where we need to be, even if it's not every meal, it's not every day.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's a great comparison. I think that's a wonderful comparison because you're right. It's very difficult to like move the needle on everything every day because
mhm.
at a certain point then we feel like we're not living. We feel like I got to do this now and then moving the needle here and move the needle there. And at the end of all that time, then we're putting ourselves in our own box even though we're still moving things forward. Life has to take its natural rhythm,
Mhm.
its natural path. It's like a dance. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And with that, I always like one of my favorite things to say is that, like, when we take the first 2 steps, God will open up the next step. God will open up the next door. Obviously, I'm a, believer in God. And I really have seen in my life where I've wanted to go in certain directions. And even though I might have been unsure or insecure about things, I would take 2 steps forward and all of a sudden it'd be like, oh, okay, I get this. Sometimes there would be a step back and I would have to like adjust my route. And I think that's where adaptability and flexibility come in. And
Mhm.
these are also emotional intelligence markers, having adaptability and flexibility, right? Not making assumptions like, oh, life hates me,
Yeah,
right? Like we can't make assumptions. We have to just find what fits. And if something isn't
yeah.
working, all we need to do is just, you know, uh, redirect our route the slightest bit.
Mhm.
I think that's really important. But I do love your analogy, and I will tell you that for my kids, and I'm sure it's a totally different thing for your daughter, but for my kids, every time they swam, they would be ravenous. So
Yeah.
swimming might be, I know they're burning calories, but it makes
Yeah.
them ravenous. So just
Yeah,
a
there you
thought,
go.
just a thought, right? Right.
That
So,
post-swim sandwich always hits different.
right, exactly.
Um, yeah, it's so good. All right, so all the different types of quality time, prioritizing yourself,
Mhm,
your kids, and,
mhm.
moving the needle with your career goals. Um, so we've got 4 tips now. We've got 7. So what are other pieces of the pie that people can think about throughout their week?
It's very important to look into your blind spots. I'm
Mhm.
going to give you an example.
Yeah.
I know that I'm a writer. I know that I love working in Google Docs or Word, but I also know that Excel spreadsheets is not my favorite, right?
Mhm.
I don't think in a mathematical way. I think,
Mhm.
more in a feeling oriented way. So I'm telling you that for a reason, because there are things we know about ourselves and things we know that we aren't really that great at. But
Mhm.
there are also a whole host of things that we don't even know about ourselves, that we don't even know we're supposed to know about ourselves. And I think it's important. So there are a lot of amazing assessments out there online. Some of them are free, some of them are personality tests, some of them are like vocational tests that tell what you might be good at. I am a particular fan of the KBAT, which I developed, and it just helps us understand where we belong in the job market.
Mm.
Excuse me. It helps us understand where we belong in the field, like where our strengths are,
Yeah.
what our values are, where we're having value conflicts. It gives us the confidence and the clarity to throw our hat in the ring for certain promotions, for
Mhm.
certain job opportunities. It helps us to go for areas that we might not have ever thought to go for before. And I think it's important that we look into our blind spots.
Yeah.
So any way that somebody can assess themselves, whether it's something online or a personality or even, contacting us, whatever way somebody can assess themselves, I think it's really important to continually look at ourselves through a different lens,
Yeah.
because otherwise we're just holding ourselves small.
Mhm.
A lot of these assessments, like the KBAT, is made up of 7 different sciences. So you know, this isn't somebody's mother saying, "Oh, you're so great at such and such." Right? It's not somebody who loves us and knows us, or, family member or friend. This is literally science telling us, well, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, and, with a coach helping to understand where to apply those so that
Mhm.
you really get the biggest bang for your buck in your career life, and when it comes to fulfillment. And, shedding clarity is critical for
Mhm.
finding where you're going to receive fulfillment in your career.
Yeah, and I love that it's not only about blind spots, but it can be really affirming to certain skills because, I don't know anyone, well, I guess, there's some men out there that don't struggle with imposter syndrome. But, most people are gonna have some type of imposter syndrome. So if
Yeah,
it can, point to some blind spots, areas that you can prioritize to work on, but then also just give you the confidence, like, I am pretty good at this in a way
right.
that maybe didn't credit myself and really pursue that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's interesting because just the other day, we had a woman take the KBAT, and she was already a manager and a coach. And it's interesting that you said that about imposter syndrome, because she walked away saying, "Oh my God, I really am a good leader. I really do know the areas that I can take charge in." And it was such a revelation for her. It was so eye-opening for her, when in reality, like, a lot of times assessments like these truly, truly confirm who you are, and they help you, like you said, get rid of that imposter syndrome. So I agree with you 100%. So, um, number 6, right? If we're moving along
Yeah.
on the how to help yourself move forward. I love this one. This is something that everyone can do right this second. Like if you literally have your phone in your hand or a pen in your hand, you can, there you go. You can literally, love that, Morgan. You can literally write down your accomplishments from this month or from the last 3 months. What is it that you accomplished?
Yeah.
Like for you, example, like how many people did you interview in the past 2 or 3 months, right? That is literally a number, a metric that is for you to write down right now, that you don't have to remember it in a year from now.
Yeah.
When you need to write it. There are a lot of people who are satisfied in their careers right now. However, a lot of companies might be downsizing, or maybe your company is being taken over by private equity. Or maybe at some point you just say, you know what, I want a little bit more in life. Instead of first trying to remember everything to put on your resume, it's great to stop every month or every couple of months and write down what those accomplishments were. Because once you write down the accomplishments, you're not going to forget them. You're not going to be scrambling last minute. And you have talking points, right? A lot of hiring managers, right? They like to have numbers, a metric to sink their teeth into. So I think it's important for us to track our accomplishments. And the other thing that it does is it makes us aware again of that imposter syndrome.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God, I really did accomplish XYZ this month. And I think that's important for us all to like just stay relevant, keep ourselves updated, keep ourselves relevant, especially in the job market.
Absolutely. Especially, if you're starting to think about making that shift, if you've been somewhere for a long time, the thought of gathering everything, you might think there's not much to gather, but if you've been doing it along the way, it's not such a big mental jump to say, I provided value here. I can do it somewhere else. I can talk about that. At least like that sounds very approachable to me. I'm like, okay, that would definitely be serving my future self.
Yeah,
a lot.
absolutely. 100%. 100%.
And then what's the bow on the steps? We're at 7. My favorite.
It's taking your hand. It's taking your hand and going like this.
Yeah.
Good job. It's just acknowledging yourself. Acknowledge what you've done. There were times that, I was rushing around all morning, getting my kids ready for school and then drop them off. And then I would just take a step and go, okay, good job. I got through the morning, got through getting them, they got to school on time. Everybody's fed. Everybody has their lunch packs. I'm just going to acknowledge myself. Believe it or not, those simple acknowledgments make such a difference. They really do. And it starts your day off on the right foot. And even if you're having a bad moment throughout your day, or even if, you stop every hour throughout your day and say, okay, what did I accomplish? Just these little mental uplifting boosts that give you the momentum to continue with your day, to keep everything fresh, to keep it moving along, and to help you get to the next step without, look, it's easy to have negative self-talk. But if you really want to overcome that negative self-talk in your brain, this is a very, very powerful activity to just stop every hour and just acknowledge yourself for something small. It doesn't have to be something huge. It could be good job focusing on that task for the last hour. It could even be good job getting 2 loads of laundry done this last hour and a half. It could be anything like that, but just acknowledging ourselves, because I think we mentally beat ourselves up too much.
Definitely, especially the types of things that we acknowledge ourselves for. We show, it seems like so like baseline, bare minimum, but at the end of the day, it also takes a lot of effort, like getting the kids fed, getting them out the door, keeping the house functioning while you're doing everything else on top of it. It's like, yeah, of course I have to do that. But it still takes so much energy, so much time. And so it's important I love that. I love just, giving ourselves a little credit.
Giving ourselves a little credit. I love that. And you don't have to hire an expensive, therapist to do that, right? It's something that we can all do ourselves. We can each just take that moment and say, hey, good job. I like what you did. Or it could even be like, good job remembering to take your vitamins. Right. simple little things like that, good job taking care of yourself. And
Mhm.
remember, like, if you don't take care of yourself, who will? You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of those who you love. Very important.
Absolutely. Well, something I definitely appreciate that's just been a theme throughout all these steps is how accessible you've made them. Obviously, there are ways that people can
Mm.
invest in some of these things financially, but, of course, at American SPCC, we're very, very focused on being accessible, being a free resource to caregivers wherever they are. And so thank you for, making these steps really accessible, both financially and then also, time wise. It's just a step in the right direction each time. And so I think that, families are going to get a lot of value from this. And I'm just so thankful for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for summing it up like that because yeah, my goal really is to make things accessible for everybody and just to, keep God first and families in mind and make the right decisions and create that mental balance. And a lot of it starts with taking care of ourselves and things that don't necessarily cost money. So thank you for interviewing me today. I love American Society for the Positive Care of Children. I think it's a wonderful organization. And I think you're doing a great job. Thank you so much also.
Thank you, Tracy.